Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome once again to another live stream. As the more perceptive among you may have noticed, we are joined by the delightful Sally Inkster of Find Brand You. Now, we often cover different elements of personal branding, but today I thought it was high time we talked about common mistakes that people make and possibly even a little way to course correct to avoid them. Sally?
Yeah, there's some definite common mistakes that people make. So should we sort of start on the first on the list?
Well, okay, start on the first on the list, and if you'd explain how that typically manifests, how you'd recognize it, and then perhaps even a little tip of how you could recover from that position.
Yeah, okay. Well, first of all, people know they need a personal brand, but they're not actually sure. They know they have to talk about themselves or have pictures of themselves, but that's about as far as their knowledge goes. And so they just leave it to chance. And there's a very well-known saying that if you don't define and explain your personal brand, then other people do it for you. And that is not what you want. You don't want it left to chance. You have to do your personal brand very, very systematically, very consistently, and with very great clarity.
Right.
One of the stories I have is that there was a coach once who had a coaching business, and he was doing really quite well, but he couldn't work out why people would come onto the calls and go, yeah, I absolutely love to work with you. And then they'd sort of ghost him. Now, that happens to every coach I know, but this was happening to quite a well-known coach, and he couldn't understand why.
Really?
And then one day, he put his own name into Google Incognito. And it turned out that he had the same name as somebody who was on death row.
You couldn't make that up. You couldn't make that up. That's just nuts.
No, that is nuts, isn't it? So you see, that sort of thing can be happening to you because you look at your own computer loves you. It adores you and it thinks you are the best thing since sliced bread. So it will always tell you the good things about yourself and it will show you the most up-to-date photos. But if you go onto a stranger's computer or if you go onto Google, not that I'm advertising, but Google Incognito, then you put your name in or your business name in or something that you think people are Googling about you, and you will be amazed at what comes up.
So what you're saying is go to something which has got no idea that you exist, and then it's a bit scary.
See what it finds about you. That is scary. I mean, that is scary. So if you've got lots of things about you that were coming up from ancient history, then you just have to bombard it with loads of new stuff. But if there is somebody out there with the same name, because I've got the same name as an American golfer. Now, golfing and personal brand are relatively different than people, and she has dark hair and I have fair. So we sort of get away with it. It's not a big issue. But even just having your name associated with somebody who's on death row is going to cause a negativity somewhere, is it not?
Yes, of course it is. It's immediately going to be a turn off.
Yes. So that's the first mistake. People just leave it to chance.
Okay. What's the next mistake?
Okay. They do branding too soon. I think I've talked before about the difference between brand and branding.
Yeah, this is a common mistake, isn't it?
It is. And people, the mistake they make is they don't understand. And even people who are very, seasoned business people do not understand that there is a difference between brand and branding. So brand is the foundation of who you are, what you stand for, and how you help. Branding is how you show that, which brings me to the next thing that people do wrong is when they're first starting up a business, they go, okay, what's the name going to be? Yeah. What are we going to call ourselves? And invariably, they'll end up with something quite often that they think is very clever. Now, I can tell you I made this mistake. So when 15 years ago I started out as a stylist, I live in Chester. Now, Chester's Roman name is Diva, D-E-V-A.
Right.
And I thought it would be really clever to call myself Diva, D-I-V-A, dressing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, I kept that name for a long time, but I used to get a different community coming to my talks, coming live, because diva has different connotations depending where you look
Of
at it.
course it does. Of course it does. It's got a whole series of double meanings.
Exactly. And I have had some amazingly wonderful people come and listen to my talks who weren't people I had particularly geared the talk to, but I did. And it was somewhere I hadn't expected the business to go, but it did. But as I say, that was because I was trying to be clever. Okay.
Did you end up dressing any divas?
Oh, loads. Especially those in drag.
Well, now then.
It was fun. But as you can see, that can be an issue. If you think of a name before you have gone through the process of learning exactly who you are, what you stand for, and how you help, and then your business name comes out of that. Because quite often, if people have come out of corporate, they just choose their initials. So they sound like a firm of solicitors, or a dentist, and that's not what you are doing.
So derive your brand from what you do.
Yes. Oh, derive your name when you've done the deep work about what it is you're doing. And then at the end of that, the name is obvious. It's either your name with a good tagline, or it is a very explanatory title.
All right. So, okay, because a lot of people run into these things and overthink it and come up with weird. I'll tell you one. I got one for you as well. When I first started my first business, it was called Waxworks Models, and because it wasn't completely my idea, my accountant thought it sounded really funny because my surname's Wax. But the problem is, I then spent the next few years for me coming to me as part of the modelling community to make Waxworks models for people.
Of course they did. Exactly. And that is a mistake that people make. They come up with their name because they think it's clever. They've collaborated or asked other people, and we'll come to that one in a bit, and it's not a good idea.
They've been too clever for their own bloody good. That's what it is.
Yeah. And I mean, I've made that mistake. I think every business owner can say they have. But if you don't want to spend time, money, and effort trying to get your personal brand right, then you need to get help at the beginning. It takes 18 months of making all these mistakes because you don't want to believe they are mistakes. And then when you get to the end of 18 months and things are going wrong, you go, oh my God, I did that wrong. Anyway, so now you've got your business name. The next thing you run out to do, again, which is a mistake, is your website. And either you think you're going to do it yourself, which is absolutely fine, but you run it, you make the website about this name you've got. And or you ask somebody else to build your website. And the poor website designers, website designers, do not get me wrong, are superb at what they do. But sometimes they'll go, well, what is it exactly you're trying to do? And the client will go, well, and then reel off loads of things. So the poor website designer doesn't have a cat and hell's chance of getting absolutely that person right, because that person hasn't got themselves right yet.
Yeah, it's basically poo runs downhill. If you started off with dodgy branding and then you pass it on to the web designer, they haven't got a hope in hell. That they make it look shinier.
They do a very good website, but it's not based on you. And
no,
that's hard work, isn't it? And whatever you're doing, getting a website isn't a cheap option.
No.
Especially not if you're going to have to repeat it again in less than 2 years.
No, it's just nutty, really, because you throw. I've seen people do this, spend thousands and thousands of pounds building something, and they've realised that it's the very premise about which it's built is off center.
Off
It's
center.
not on the.
It's like colours. I mean, just as simple as your colours. You know, a
Yes.
website designer. What, do you like orange and green? Oh wow, they look great together. Okay,
Yeah.
well we'll have orange and green then. But there's got to be so much more, and it's not just about what the colours mean. It's what they mean to you and whether they suit you. I mean, there's so much to do around colour. It's a huge subject, and so
Yeah.
doing your website too early is again.
Okay.
And then you come on to the big one. So we've got the social media marketing, you know, which you always have your brand. If you have your brand and you get that right, then you show it in your branding. And when you have your branding, you use that in your marketing to show what the brand is. So it goes in a circle. But if you haven't got the foundations of the brand done, then the circle never completes, because the marketing isn't going anywhere because it hasn't got a brand to explain. It's just got some clever branding.
So the problem here is you haven't built your brand foundations.
Exactly. Yeah.
And this, I think I've seen this time and time again. You're running ahead before you've got the basics right.
Yeah. Yes.
You
And we have
need to
talked
work.
before,
Yes.
about building a house. And if you don't get those foundations in, then the house hasn't got cat and house, you know, again, hasn't got a chance of standing upright for very long, or at
Right.
least not without going wonky.
So the obvious way of fixing that is going to be all about making sure that you've put the effort in place to work out what you stand for, who you're trying to talk to, and what it is they're going to be looking for from you, and which is based on who you actually are.
Exactly. And that people think, okay, well, I'll spend a couple of hours thinking about that, write a few ideas and go on with it. But it takes some quite deep systematic work to work out what it is that you need to put forth.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So that's marketing. And then the other thing we all need, because you know, when you're starting a business, people go, okay, tick shot, we need business cards, we need a website, and we need headshots or branding shots.
Right.
So headshots again, you know, headshots on LinkedIn are, you get a tiny little hole, don't you, to put your whole self over in, or at least your whole head. And somehow or other, it was better when we had that little video that they've taken away now. That was such a shame, LinkedIn. Was it not? Where your little...
I thought it was a quick way that people could get the essence of who you are, and it was a shame they took it.
It was a great
shame. I know the reason why they took it. They suddenly realized that the amount of disk space they were going to have to come up with was going to suddenly, like that, because if everybody did it, that's suddenly gazillion amounts of disk space. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was a shame. I did like that one. So headshots again. Headshot, yes, has to be straightforward. You need to be smiling, looking welcoming. But it's when you do your branding shots, because people go, okay, well, I need myself with a laptop because I work on Zoom. I need myself drinking a cup of coffee, sitting under a tree or on a sofa. You know, how many branding shots have you seen like that? That's not a branding shot. That is a nice picture with you in it.
Yeah, it's the sort of things you expect in Kay's magazine or Littlewoods or whatever it was. You know, man hailing a taxi and man reading newspaper. Yeah, I get that. A branding shot. How would you describe a good branding shot?
To me, a good branding shot is all about emotions, not smiles. I mean, some of it's got to be smiles, obviously. But the action shots, and I don't mean action shots by working on your computer or talking to somebody. They're much, much more nuanced, because you want to be able to reuse them and reuse them and reuse them. And so branding shots have to work for every season. They have to work about every subject you're going to, you know, talk about. Because, you know, not everybody's a millionaire that you can have a branding shoot every couple of months to update. Great if you can. And lots of professional photographers now offer that, you know, come and every month we'll do new brand shows, which is absolutely great. But again, if you don't know the foundations of what you're trying to get over and what you're saying to your clients, then that again is a waste of money. You have to have done the foundation first to know what you're trying to say in that brand shoot.
All right. Well, look, I tell you what, I think only a soup song of the number of things you need to take into account, but I think it gives everyone some food for thought, things they can look at right now to make sure that they are not running before they can walk, that they have put the foundations in place. This is going to help them just promote their brand to make sure that their branding is on point. Sally, thank you very much for this. Every day's a learning day here.
I do have one other.
Oh,
so one other really good tip is do not ask friends and family unless they run a small business or a business like you do.
So true. Oh, so true. So true.
It's like
bless them all. Bless them all.
You need heart surgery, so you think, oh well, I'll go and ask a butcher, or I'll go and ask, a baker. What do you think about my heart surgery? Don't do that.
Put it a gas mark for.
So don't ask friends and family unless they are actually small business owners and they know what your business is about.
Yeah, once again,
otherwise you're not going to get the right answers.
You're never going to get the right answers. Thank you very much, Sally. More insights into the world of personal branding and the things you need to take into account about how you're going to present yourself to the world. Until the next time we speak, remember, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. Make sure that the way you present yourself is the way that you want to be seen. It's so silly. People just take no notice of that. And remember, try and look after that mental health. Until next time, take care. Goodbye now.
Bye-bye.
So